going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fans View podcast. This week, I'm so excited to bring on someone that, as a teenage wrestling fan in the 90s, you are very familiar with this week's guest. I'm sure she was on your wall. I'm so happy to introduce you guys to Miss Chae Marsh, or as you know her, Nitro Girl Chae. First of all, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great. The kids are finally out of our hair. We had them home for a whole week. And and then our kids were saying, "Oh, you went by so fast." I'm like, "No, it felt like about a month."
And you just have Christmas vacation pretty soon here to look forward to, too. That should be fun.
See, that's another thing. They're like, "Oh, 3 more weeks." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, 3 more weeks." No, they're great. They're great. Obviously, you have a cute 2-year-old, and they're a handful. You can't keep your eyes off of them. But once they can wipe their own butts, it's pretty easy from there. But it's just our kids, they bicker a lot, as they
Yeah.
should. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just very
Thankfully,
overwhelming.
I don't have that problem yet. I only have
Yes,
one so far. Yet.
and yeah, and you're gonna have
That's what everyone tells me.
yeah, yeah.
But enough about me. Nobody wants to hear about me. They want to hear about you. I'm just going to get right into it. I
Okay.
know that you're a first generation Korean American, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about your upbringing and what the transition was coming to the United States?
Well, yes, Korea, and I have two older brothers. And when I was in first grade, my aunt, my dad's older sister, who was American citizen, applied. She sponsored our family, and it took about 4 years for the visas to get approved. So about when I was done with fifth grade, we came to the States. In Korea, it was. I mean, it's not as advanced as it is now because it's been a long time since we came. This is like in the mid '80s. I just aged myself, but anyway, and I was 11, and so it was a big change at the time because especially because I didn't know any English, and I always say immigrants come either as scholars or blue collar, and we were definitely blue collars. My parents they didn't speak English, we didn't have much money, so when we came, they went straight into just factory work, multiple jobs, as all immigrants do. But we were so grateful for the opportunity to be here. This really, honestly, even after all these years, it is such a land of it really is a land of opportunity. And I can honestly say that with all my brothers and I and my parents really did achieve that ultimate American dream. And I think for me, I've always, even when I was little, even when I was in Korea, I think it's just naturally, I always had this grateful heart, and I think I was blessed with that. Even at bad times, I was just, it's just I always try to see the glass as half full. Not always, but coming here and having this opportunity, it just really solidified that in my heart. And I can honestly say that really it's been probably the foundation of my years here in the States. And yeah, it's amazing. And again, coming here and now, I mean, you have a Google Translate, you can just,
Yeah.
I mean, it'll translate for you as you're speaking. But
Yeah.
back then, the dictionary I carried around was about that thick, and front half was English to Korean, and then you flip it, and then it's Korean to English. So I spent a lot of times. I mean, that was like attached to my hips, where I'm constantly. It's like it's like the phone these days. Like I
Yeah.
never left home
Yeah.
without it, right?
Yeah.
And I
That
was
is
yeah, it was constantly
wow.
like translating back and forth. And it took about, the younger you are, the faster you catch the language.
Right.
And so I probably got the hang of the language about a year and a half after I came. And then from there is, sky's the limit, right?
Wow, that is tremendous. Yeah, I never even thought about that, the role that that technology would play and lack of back then. That's incredible. So, when did you really start develop your passion for dance? Obviously, we're going to get to your wrestling career in the Nitro Girls, but
hmm
obviously before that, you had a foundation somewhat in dance. When did that become a passion of yours?
Well, I honestly, back in Korea, I don't know how it is now. I think they're a little bit more open-minded to things outside of academia. But
Right.
when I was there growing up, everything was so focused on academics. And I can tell you there was no youth sport back when I was growing up, like none. So I never played, I've never touched a basketball, never touched anything. And there was no dance. I mean, if you had extra time, either you went tutoring for extra math help or you took like instrument lessons, like piano or violin, and that was a big thing. So I didn't have any dance background, but luckily was coordinated. I had one left foot and one right foot, not, two left feet. But it really didn't come into even in the picture until seventh grade. So when you watch your parents dedicate themselves to us, their family, making that huge change when they didn't know any English, they didn't have any money. They came again having multiple blue collar jobs in factories. You have such an appreciation for what they put in. So I've always told myself, I'm not going to let any opportunity pass me by. So once I start to communicate well in English with English, and once I got to middle school, seventh grade, I started, in gym class, I learned how to play basketball, learned how to play volleyball, those kind of sports. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try out for a team. And I actually would make it. I never started. I actually played like in fifth quarter. I know fifth quarter doesn't exist because fifth quarter was always put together for those kids that didn't play, right?
Right.
So, but at least, I can like pull out my um, yearbook, and say that I was on a, sports team.
Right.
Anyway, so after seventh grade, I saw a poster that went up and said cheerleading competition. I'm sorry, cheerleading trial. And I was very naive, because if you think about cheerleading, there's this
Mhm.
stereotype that comes with cheerleading. It's very intimidating, but for some girls to want to be a cheerleader, just because, especially if there was already a team in seventh grade, and you see those girls as being in like a really big clique,
Yeah.
and I hate to say it, but the popular girls. But for me, it's like ignorance is bliss. Just didn't register. I'm like, oh, it looks fun. You stand in front of,
Right.
the crowd at the basketball game and you just kind of do your little pom pom movements. And I didn't really put the status of cheerleaders to
Right.
what cheerleading was. So I tried out for cheerleading. And out of the girls from seventh grade, I was the only new girl. I actually knocked off this one girl, to be honest.
Wow.
Right. And call it DEI. I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to check off that minority box. I don't know. But obviously, it's not like I caught on to the movement fairly easy. So, I don't think it was all that. But all joking aside, I tried out for cheerleading. So I cheered in eighth grade and then went up to high school, cheered in ninth grade. And in 10th grade, I changed to a dance team. The high school had a dance team. So I changed to dance teams. I danced 10th and 11th grade. But we moved away my senior year. So I didn't do anything at my new school. But in college, I danced for a couple of years. And so it's just matter of, I had rhythm and I really liked it. And I guess I was consistent enough with it. And what happened was we were in Savannah and I was visiting a friend up in Atlanta. And I noticed that there was like I don't know how we found it or maybe somebody told us about it. They were having a clinic for Atlanta Falcons tryout clinic, not the actual tryout. So I thought, let me check it out. It's just like I'm like on that momentum. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
if there's an opportunity, and if I have time and if I can make it, why not? I'm gonna go for it, right?
Absolutely.
So I went and I noticed once they could see that I could dance, because they had the veteran cheerleaders there helping doing the clinic. And they were extra nice to me. They were extra engaging to me and encouraging, saying, you're going to come back and try out, right? You're going to come back and try out, right? I'm like, okay, so this is pretty encouraging. Again, in hindsight, I look back and I was really the only Asian cheerleader out of the whole squad, out of like 35 plus girls, and
Right.
so the reason I'm kind of emphasizing that is, I'm going to actually tie it all back together again. But so I tried out for the Falcons cheerleading and I made it. And that's kind of, that again we might be getting ahead of ourselves, but that's kind of like how I actually ended up getting the opportunity to try out for Kimberly after that because I was the Falcons cheerleader.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely where I was going. That was a perfect segue.
Yeah, yeah.
Being that you were an Atlanta Falcons cheerleader, obviously WCW was based out of Atlanta, out of the CNN Center, which if you've ever been to Atlanta, that is all right there in one big conglomeration.
Yeah.
So you started to tell us how did the Nitro Girls thing come about? How did you find yourself in WCW, in World Championship Wrestling?
Well, now this was so there's what I knew then and what I discovered later is all I knew at the time was AC Jazz. She was one of the original Nitro Girls. She also cheered for the Falcons, but I didn't know her personally because she stopped cheering before I got the Falcons. And she knew Kimberly and Amy. Well, actually, Kim at the time was training at the Main Event gym that Lex Luger and Sting owned. And so from there, AC Jazz worked out there, and so did Spice, Melissa.
Okay.
So Kim knew Amy and Melissa from working out at Main Event. And at the time, Melissa was dancing for Life College, which is a preparatory school up in Atlanta. And Kimberly knew that Amy used to cheer for the Falcons. So I think immediately Kim, when she got this project given to her by Eric, she immediately went and to Amy and Melissa and said, "Hey, I'm putting together a little dance squad for Monday Night Nitro. Would you guys be interested?" Like, I don't even think they even had to try out because Kimberly knew, right?
Right.
And Kimberly, from the very beginning, had this idea because at the time, Spice Girls were very popular. So she wanted the girls to have their individual identity, individual look, right? So here's Amy, who's a blonde, and then Melissa, the tomboy pixie haircut kind of a thing, and then from there, I think Melissa actually reached out to some of her dance friends that she knew from her dance team at Life College. Amy would reach out to her contact in the Falcons and put together private tryouts for Kimberly. So for me at the time, I didn't know anything about wrestling. I had just moved up from Savannah because I made the Falcons. And I knew Hulk Hogan because my grandpa used to watch it, even in Korea. It was just all over. But you knew Hulk Hogan. And then, I think Hulk Hogan and maybe Macho Man. I don't know. Probably two people that I knew. I didn't know much about wrestling. I never really sat through even a show on TV. And then I came and they said that it was traveling. It was going to be on TV. A bunch of girls went, so I said, why not? And I went, and obviously there's a little check mark. Obviously Kim, there's an Asian girl that can dance, which obviously is probably harder to come by than you would think. Because you can find dime a dozen that can play piano or violin, but the one that can dance, just because it's just not something that our culture,
Right. Yeah.
And then I was offered the job, but it wasn't until I went home to Savannah to visit, and I had one of my best friends in Savannah. She worked at a sports bar, and her boyfriend at the time managed a sports bar. And we're just hanging out, and they said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I just got on this dance team. It's for some TV show on Monday." They're like, "What's it called?" I said, "I don't know, Monday Night WCW something." And they're like, "Monday Night Nitro?" I said, "Yeah, do you know it?" They're like, "What do you mean, do we know it? It's our busiest night of the week at our sports bar." So just from their, expression, I was like, okay, maybe this is just going to be something a lot bigger than I thought. Anyway, yeah, and then the other girls, and we finally got a team together, and we all rehearsed at Main Event. And I still remember their aerobics room was downstairs. You had to go down the stairs, but I still remember it as clear as day. Good time.
Yeah, you came into professional wrestling, you didn't even know it probably, but at a point where professional wrestling is probably the hottest it has been and will be for my lifetime, So, to say you were on it,
there's not going to be another Monday Night War. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
Maybe there is, but nothing as intense, as it was back then.
Yeah, exactly. The way that TV viewership is now with streaming, you're never going to get lightning in the bottle the way you did
Right,
then.
where you're clicking back and forth on your remote.
Yes, exactly. So a couple things I wanted to touch on. You know, you had some very unique opportunities as a member of the Nitro Girls, besides just performing on Nitro and Thunder and things like that. I saw in my research in 1997, you and the Nitro Girls were actually featured in Penthouse. Obviously, it was
Mhm.
in a nod nude capacity, but what was that experience like? I mean, that had to be mind blowing.
You know, it really wasn't. It was just another day, I think. I think the photographers just came to one of our shows and took some pictures in the locker room. And I know there's like we took some pictures with Goldberg and maybe Eric Bischoff. So it really wasn't, it was very underrepresented. It just kind of,
Hmm.
we're just doing a photo shoot and it's going to be on Penthouse. And I mean, I knew what Penthouse was, but I mean, I knew I didn't have to really anything to worry about because I had full control over what I, was willing to do. And I don't know if the powers to be or even Eric would have allowed us to
Right,
push the envelope further than what we did.
right,
I feel like we were very well, nobody really threw us in the company out to the wolves.
right,
Nobody really, they, in a way, kind of really wanted to keep us to be very marketable, very mainstream. And I think that's one of the reasons why we were added to the show anyway, because from what I understood, practicing standards, I think it's called, where,
hmm,
since we're considered family station, there's certain things. I mean, I think the storylines and all that had to be presented and people had to approve it and they had to modify it. And we just couldn't compete with what WWF at the time was doing with
right.
female, but Eric knew the importance of girl presence because it is male soap opera. I mean, you have to have,
Absolutely.
you gotta sprinkle a little bit of TNA, even if it's
Yeah,
not what. But
exactly.
yeah, so I think they really, and then not to mention like every city they would go to, we would fly in the day before, even the morning of. We'd go to like children's hospitals and we'd visit kids and we would present them with little checks here and there. So I think they just really um, were smart with how they kept us um, well rounded.
Yeah, it always kind of seemed like you guys were kind of the ambassadors for the company,
Right.
more than just like the dance team or like you said TNA on the program. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
were featured as ambassadors outside of the ring as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Something else that the Nitro Girls got to take part in, which was super cool. I thought anyway, was Ready to Rumble.
I know
Obviously,
it was awesome. It was great. It was
how
great.
was that experience with Ready to Rumble?
So for a whole month, they put us up at like there was this one, I think maybe Hilton downtown LA, and all the talent, the wrestlers, and us, we were, they all gave us like the probably the not the suite, but like the biggest room they could give us. They were all corner rooms. We're like stacked on top of each other. So that's where we flew in and out of for a month for show or promotions or anything. So that was our home for a month. Each one of us got rooms, and every week we'd show up, and they would give us these little yellow envelopes with our per diem money, cash for food for the week. So again, it's just, and then the movie sets. Obviously, none of us have experienced it, so we got to experience what all goes into making a movie. Let me tell you, I mean, back then, I mean, we didn't have iPhones, so we each one of us had our separate trailers, and we would be there sometimes like for 10 hours for literally for like 15 to 30 minutes of film thing. But we had
Right.
to just hurry up and wait. We're just waiting around and we just visit each other and we had nothing to do, reading books. That got boring. So yeah, but but it was a time when I think us girls, we were very close to begin with. And I can honestly say that we probably saw each other more than we did significant others, even the girls that were married. And I think that's when we really came together. And I always say in friendship, it's by choice, it's by chance or by choice. Well, no, friendships are usually it's always by choice. If you don't like somebody, if you don't see eye to eye with certain things, and if certain things kind of annoy you about some person, you just don't hang out with them or we don't return their calls, right? But with us, we had to learn to accept each other for the things, focus on the good things and accept each other, for the differences. And I mean,
Right.
it was even more bonding than marriage, because we
Yeah, I
couldn't
was
even
just gonna
divorce
say.
each other because, we could not be friends, but you know what? You're going to spend the next, 10 days on the road with them between house shows and Nitro. You got to be in the same car with them. You got to drive and you got to depend on each other, so yeah, so it was great.
That's awesome. Ready to Rumble, obviously, in my age demographic is just that's top of the food chain there. That was
I
so
know.
much fun.
No, it's funny. We still get so obviously in the very beginning, we got our checks, royalty checks, and they were pretty decent. I don't remember what they were. I still get checks, and I could
Residual
probably take
checks.
them. Yes, but they're it's almost like like the stamp that they use probably costs more than the check. I mean, literally, I think the checks average anywhere from $6 to $7.
Now I'm gonna think
So
about you every time I watch that movie.
I know, no, but that's the thing. Keep watching.
Oh, I will. Don't you worry. I
So I
will.
would think probably like maybe every time somebody watches it, maybe I get like, I don't know, a penny, I don't know. But again, yeah.
All right, fans view listeners. Now you guys have your job. You watch Ready to
Yes.
Rumble, and then you just turn
Holidays
it on before you
coming.
leave the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right?
We're gonna get those views up for you. I promise. We're gonna do it. So obviously you had a lot of opportunities and fun things that you did with the Nitro Girls. One thing we really didn't see much out of you specifically was in-ring physicality.
Hmm.
Was that ever something you were interested in, or is that something you were just, I would just like to dance and be an ambassador and leave it at that?
Well, as you know, one by one, we got plucked away. And we got in, first, I think we got into storylines where we did more than dance. We would get into this power struggle, cat fights, and jealousy and division. It was, and again, I mean, Vince did what he had to do. He wanted shock value, and when he came in, he kind of went a WWF style, But I don't think that was really viewed well because that we were just that one consistency that people could depend on. Because what are you going to do after that one shock value? The next one is not going to be as big, and that next thing you know, we're not relevant anymore. But at the same time, by then we've been doing it for three and almost over 3 years. So that kind of became our livelihood, and it became our lives. And just the thought of not having it, um, it was scary. Not so much for the unemployment fact of it, but because it was a change. Because we were
Right.
so well just intertwined with the company that anything outside of it is, it's might as well just kind of, rip a baby out, off of, mom's arms kind of a thing.
Right.
So when I saw where things were going, yes, I did wonder when and if I would get pulled in to a
Yeah.
storyline or given a character or given a wrestler to ballet or whatever. But I never did. Number one, I personally, like, I do really well in groups. Like, this is going back to like even middle school, high school. Whenever we'd go to summer camps for cheerleading, you're cheering in a group, and then there would be counselors that select individuals out of the team, and you're to perform individually, right? To
Right.
kind of get acknowledged individually. I would always get picked because I always shine. I always,
Right.
had the best time. But when you pluck me away from the group and make me stand alone, I bombed every bit of my routine. Just because like I just found so much comfort in being a part of a group. So in hindsight, even though that I wanted to be something individually, a character, a name, or, in hindsight, I know I would not have been good. I just, and then anything talking role, I don't think I would have been good. And I never did get pulled in. I'm the only Nitro Girl that started as the original Nitro Girl that finished as a Nitro Girl. Everybody else got plucked away. But I have to tell you, I found out later that actually Kevin, when all this was happening, Kevin told the writers after one of the meetings, right before he walked out, and I think he pretty much told him, because by the way, Chae's back would never hit a match. So pretty much kind of letting them know that, you know what, I see what you're doing,
Mhm.
but she's not a wrestler.
Right.
Leave her where she is. Like in like a shortest way that he could. I mean, her back's not gonna hit the mat. And I think, but I found out later that that was said. And my initial thought was like, darn, I kind of wanted to do something different and fun, but at the same time, that was the best thing I think that
Yeah.
could have happened. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes total sense because, like you said, that they started to pluck you guys one by one, and by the end of it, it's like, what was so special about the Nitro Girls? They were just,
No,
another girl on the show that,
right. Even though
yeah,
the natural girls existed, because they kept replacing the ones that they would, but
right,
it just it's like our character was Nitro Girl.
right,
And when
right.
you take that away and then you give it to somebody new that people don't know, that they haven't invested in the last 2, 3 years, it's like kind of,
I
yeah.
absolutely understand where you're coming from. So, with that in mind, and I know this is a very difficult question because you did spend a number of years there. Is there a highlight of your time in WCW that you think about? Like, is there one moment or one night or one show that you can call back to and say that was a real highlight of your time with them?
Everything, I mean, every week was, gosh, we have so many good times. It's really hard to separate. Um, you know, I mean, I remember, I think we had a show in either Bozeman, Montana or something, maybe a pay-per-view or maybe Monday night show. And then we did house shows across the, upper northwest, and making it in time for maybe Nitro or again pay-per-view in Seattle. So that was great just because the scenery was beautiful. I mean, it was like a mini vacation. But there's so many of them. One thing that was really amazing, I think, is going to Australia. Because we did the European tours, we did that. That one neat thing in one of our European tours, we stayed at this one hotel in England, outside of London, and apparently some girls were talking about some weird things happening in their room or something, and then we all were at the hotel bar, surprise. Um, and somebody, I think one of the staff at the hotel said, "Yeah, didn't you guys know our hotel's haunted?" So that was interesting. But I think Australia was it, just because it took so darn long to get there. You almost felt like you were in a whole nother complete universe, you know? Um, and I'll just never forget, I felt like we were so away from it all, like in a whole nother world. And I remember coming through the customs and rolling my bag out. And at the baggage claim, somebody was yelling my name. And I was just kind of looking for like one of the people that we work with, whether it's the crew or the talent. No, it was like some random fan calling my name. And I was like, we always knew it was syndicated, but
Right.
but we just never, the extent of the reach that we had and recognition. It was very, 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 very humbling. And then we did a lot of media blitz, did like the morning shows, and like newspaper followed us around and did photo shoots, and we were in the newspaper. That was probably the most memorable, I would say.
And your answer to that just made me think of another question that I hadn't even thought of answering. What is your opinion personally on fans at the airport? I'm sure you dealt a lot with that back in your days traveling with WCW.
I have to tell you, I didn't experience any negative or rude or disrespectful. I didn't experience any bad encounters with fans. I mean, I just didn't. And I think it's because the role that we play within. It's not like I'm sure a bunch of heels get different kind of, you know what I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
treatment or because if they don't, then they're not doing their job. Right? So I think for us, we were just like baby face wrapped in cotton candy, So I think we were just very likable and approachable. And I have to say, we did get, we get fan letters and we get, and like our head of security would come and give us our fan letters as they come, or I don't know, maybe they wait a couple months at a time. And if there's anything that is off, because I mean, people, they
Are
just
out of their
sometimes,
mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, if and we've gotten a few, and what we're our protocol was to give it back to our head of security. And if we get the same kind of letter from the same person second time, then I think they actually hand it over. They do something. They do some digging and they do some, some law enforcement. They get the law enforcement involved. But I think maybe we might have gotten. I think I've gotten maybe one, and I can't remember the other girl. But yeah, but other than that, everybody, it's just been always and just little kids. I mean, I think that was probably my favorite. Just little kids and the probably like the one of the best things at the show happening was looking up and seeing like a dad, with a girl, holding a girl and it said like future Nitro Girl, you know? And in a way I wish things would have continued enough for that to kind of happen. Like the future
Yeah.
Falcons cheerleader, or and then actually that little girl becomes Falcons cheerleader. So it
Yeah.
would have been neat to have been around long enough for something like that to happen. But that was really, really sweet.
That's terrific. And I can't let you go. We can't go past your Nitro Girl days, your wrestling days, without at least bringing up Diversity 5, which I think might have happened right after WCW, if I'm not mistaken.
Right
Can you
after
talk a little bit
yeah.
about that?
Well, we were so stuck, in the hips, and when it was obvious that Vince wasn't gonna bring on the Nitro Girls, and we really weren't ready to let each other go, and we were just trying to figure out what can we do together. And I have to say, most of the girls really they were amazing singers. Just because like we're singing and in the cars we're driving between house shows and whatnot, so we know who were good singers. And at the time, it was like we were just, it was a huge wave of Spice Girls. So we're like, okay, we're diverse, and so why not? And then, Atlanta, as you know, there's a lot of music in Atlanta,
Right.
and I think I want to say Charmel knew her name. Just it's his name is Isaac. He's a black soul singer. I mean, he's older. I can't remember the name. But anyway, but his daughter was good friends with Charmel and she was into music and she knew a bunch of producers. So we're like, so I mean, you think about it, these people they
Isaac
tried.
Hayes.
Isaac Hayes, yes, Heather Hayes.
There
Thank
you go.
you, thank you. So, because these producers, they try to plug them one by one and put a group together. Well, we are here already, our groups, and let me tell you, I was the worst singer of them all. I think they actually see when we actually recorded. I don't think my mic was on. I think they actually had my mic on mute, which
Oh
I
my
am.
goodness.
You know what? Like I'll be the first one to admit it. I didn't have any problem with it, whatever it takes. So we actually made some. We recorded some songs, and it was great. And we had, but it just never gained traction. We even did this like a 15 minutes to fame kind of a thing.
Hmm.
We tried desperately to hang on to each other for about a year. And I think a lot of it, what we realized was, we're just avoiding the innovate. Like we need to just adult up, like man up, woman
Hmm.
up. We just need to kind of, because every one of us were very educated and talented on our own. And I mean, look at Vanessa. I mean, she's like senior executive for Truist, and Melissa has her own company, and Terry went on to become like a university president. So we had all this, but we just didn't want to let each other go. And then we just kind of came to a point. I'm like, okay, guys, we need to, we're weighing each other down. But, we still get together. We're still very much in touch. Melissa, Vanessa, and Terry, they're kind of all in the Charlotte area. And I try to make a visit out there at least once, twice a year. I stay at Terry's house. She's got this cutest little farm with a bunch of chickens and, yeah. So we're we're family.
And purely from a fan standpoint, there's some money to be made for a Nitro Girls reunion on the convention circuit. So
Hello.
just keep that in mind, ladies. There is money to be made.
I'm always up for vacation and some girl time. And yeah, no, I think, and what we noticed is initially once we got done, there was a high demand for us initially, and then there was a period where there's like none.
Nothing.
And then I recall maybe about 2-3 years ago, it kind of started to pick up back again. And I think it's, and so when we go visit fans, there were like, there are all these people in their late 30s or 40s, saying, "Oh, you were my childhood." And
Yep.
so I think it's become very nostalgic.
Yep. Nostalgia act. Yep.
Yeah, it's like us watching the Home Alone movie. It's like there's a reason, I feel like any kind of reboot, whether it's Friends, the show, anything, it's about 20 years that they went to do a reboot. Because again, it's almost like anything that we could just escape this adulting for a couple hours to just connect back to our childhood characters. And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just at WrestleCade this past weekend in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and there was some people talking about a Nitro Girls reunion maybe sometime in the future. So I knew I was going to see the coming Monday. I was like, I might have to mention that to her and see what we can do.
But you know what? I feel so bad too because, we're never at the same place at the same time.
Right.
And I feel so bad like when these fans come and they have our group picture, and you can tell they probably had it because it's been out for over 20 years. They probably had it for 20 years just trying to get that finished out.
Yeah.
There's like 2 or 3 girls that just and I'm like, gosh, if we could just get it all together, they could complete their, it's kind of like their journey, right?
Yeah. Yep.
They could finally just, hang it on the wall.
Trust me, you are speaking my language. Like I said, I call this the fans view because I always want to ask questions from the fans view. And that is such a great point. It's like, we can get you guys out and we can get Melissa out. And we can even get Kimberly out from time to time, but good luck getting Whisper. You're not getting that thing.
I know.
So those Nitro Girls pieces they're never getting finished. Charmel even, you can get Charmel, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry, you could get Terry out. And Amy, ACJ started to come out a bit. Vanessa, I think if I don't know, Vanessa, she's not interested, but I think there's
maybe
power
for a
in
reunion.
Number.
Yeah.
I think power in number. And I think it has to be, if you kind of get her favorite couple bottles of wine, and just her favorite, ambiance or backdrop setting. She might.
So you can be convinced. Okay, well, we're gonna have to keep that in mind. Or we might have to send you in.
Or we'll just like knock her, upside the head and just drag her. And she'll just wake up. She'll just wake up with a Sharpie in her hand.
There you go. There you go. So I love that so much. So what are you a fan of? Again, this is the fans view. I love to ask everyone, what are you a fan of these days? Obviously, your wrestling days might be over. Are you still a fan of professional wrestling? Do you ever watch it or?
Really, we have 3 kids and they're very, very involved. They're involved in multiple sports and they really keep us very busy. It's just a matter of getting everything done, and we really don't have personal time, really, to even sit down and just watch the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, unfortunately, I really haven't kept up with it. But we keep up with our old friends and what they're up to. I follow them on Instagram or something like that. Other than that, anything new, that's out there. I don't even know what I know. AEW and TNA is still a thing, but other than that, I
Yeah,
just don't
that
know how to.
WWE is the big three. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, you're a fan of the kids. That's pretty much the only
Yes,
thing you have time for.
I'm a Uber driver, a cook, maid, counselor. Yes,
You ever look
yeah.
at the kids and be like, I was a Nitro girl.
You know, it's gosh, internet's forever, right?
Yeah,
It's yeah. So it's good and it's bad. You know what I mean? And because when you were younger, you were much more you express a little bit more. When it comes to your wardrobe, and
yeah,
it's not something that I don't think my kids or my kids' friends they would want their friends to see. But I mean, it's nothing bad. I mean, we
no,
did
no,
Penthouse, and we kept everything covered in Penthouse. No,
yeah,
but no, but yeah, it's great. It's great. It's good to have. It's good to have a good, fun, entertaining history.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So the last two questions I have for you, because I know you're a busy lady, what's the best piece of advice, whether it be work related or wrestling related or whatever it may be? What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I don't. I think this is something that I might have seen, like maybe it's posted, scrolling through social media or
Right.
something, and I've heard it in different ways, like whether it's a sermon at church or in conversation. I think the biggest thing for me is keeping gratitude, and in order to do that, it's you. It's like it's not why is this happening to me, rather it's why is this happening for me. If you
Absolutely.
just change that one word, two from four, you can make. I feel like instead of just playing the victim, you can make a lesson of anything that happens to you, no matter how bad it is. I feel like it's such an epidemic these days of a lot of depression and mental illness. And I feel like people are like spiraling out of control, and I think what's important for people to know is that they're really never alone. The happiest person, I mean, like you think about it, Robin Williams, could you imagine he was suffering depression? You can never see what you can never determine. Nothing is what it seems. You can never determine what you can't judge anything. You always have to come back to it, treat others. I mean, there's so many. Treat others the way
Yeah,
you want to be treated. I mean, again, it's not just one, but just so many. But I think it's just really having, just really just pulling the big lens out from yourself. And it's not about you. You know what I mean? It's not about how you feel. It's just kind of about how is everything. I don't, it's like now I'm like kind of sparring into a rabbit hole because there's just so much to be discussed. And I think the biggest thing really is always finding the gratitude, sunshine, and everything,
absolutely.
and
It's all
always
about
finding
outlook.
a less. It's really about outlook and it's about attitude. Just don't play the victim, and
Absolutely.
so here's the thing, like for me, kind of talking about I'm glad we talked about this because now I'm kind of can come full circle. I remember first coming here being a minority, and I don't even think there were many minorities at all at the school that I started. There was a period of time where I cried myself to sleep every night because I was like, because I mean I got teased, right?
Right.
But I remember like saying, God, if you knew that this is where I was gonna live, why do I have to be different? Why can't I just be the Jane, plain Jane, even if, plain Jane next door? Why do I have to stand out? And I went through that for so many years. And I'm so, and I felt like I was always for the long time too, even in college, I felt like I was like an odd one out because I was a minority and I just felt like I was different in a bad way. But it wasn't until things started to happen. And in retrospect, starting with, um, the Falcon, and Nitro. I got all those opportunities because I'm different, because I'm unique. And I wanted to be somebody different than who I was. Because I remember, and here's a really, really good advice somebody gave me, and it's actually Sunny Ona. I didn't like my accent. And this is like soon, I remember I had just bought a program, or whether it's like 20 sessions or something, I just paid and to a speech pathologist to go once a week. And I was telling Sunny, yeah, I have an appointment with a speech pathologist. He says, for what? I said, I want to get rid of my accent. Sunny said, do you know what an accent says about that person? I said, no, what? He said that they can speak another language. And when
Well
he said
put.
that, I was like, you're right. And I canceled and I lost my money, but I canceled. And still, it kind of sometimes annoys me when I can't auto dictate my phone and it gives me something completely random. But no, but it's really, really important for people to know. And I wish I would have really embraced my differences sooner. Instead, I thought it was some kind of a curse. And I have to tell you, and this is one more story. So I came when I was in fifth grade, and then sixth grade, I moved up to middle school, and this is in Warren, Michigan. And one of my really, really good friends, her name was Veronica, and she was obese. She was sweet, but we were really, really good friends. And there was this girl in our homeroom. Her and her friends relentlessly picked on Veronica and I. Me for obvious reasons, and Veronica for her weight all the time. But the difference between us is she literally let it affect her. She took it and she became a victim, right? But for me, my parents didn't sacrifice what they sacrificed to bring us to this country to be a victim of anybody. And two things I learned from that point is not to be a victim, right? And second thing is people get picked on for everything, right?
Absolutely.
It was nothing really personal. It's kind of like road rage. That person didn't like secretly trace your routine and
Right.
hide behind the alleyway just to cut you off, right?
Right. You're just
It
there.
has nothing to do with you, but everything to do with them, right?
Yes.
And for
Absolutely.
me, luckily, I grabbed onto that, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna let her make me feel like a victim, right?
Right.
And so it's like my friend went one way, where she just let those words just become her, and then I went the
Right.
other way. To me, it's not because I'm any stronger. It's just it comes down to a choice. People say, and I kind of believe it, but I don't. Like people say that there's no such thing as trauma. Trauma is how you respond to an event, right? If you respond to an event where you're the victim, then that becomes trauma. But if you respond to an event that could have been trauma, but instead you made it into a lesson of its own, then it
Right.
empowers you even more.
Right.
And
Beautifully
this
put.
one
Yeah.
thing that I have to add too is, so this girl named Jennifer. It's like I've talked about this incident many times before with people interviews, and I never really said the last name, and I won't. But she just always was on me. And there was this kid named Greg, and his name I can say, Greg Anderson. Warren Woods Middle School, 1984 or 5, I don't know. But anyway, he was considered the most popular jock of middle school. In homeroom, he stood up for me. I will never forget. He told Jennifer to stop, and he just told her off, and he defended me. And so to me, is there racism? Another rabbit hole. I think it comes down to self-hate. You can't, anyway, but at the same time, there are people like Jennifer, and then there are people like Greg,
Right.
But
Exactly.
anyway, but I think, so be like Greg.
Yeah. Be like Greg, guys.
Be like
like
Greg. Be
Greg.
like Greg Anderson, Warren Woods Middle School, probably 1984 to 85 school year.
I love that answer.
If
I
you're there,
love.
Greg, find me. I've always wanted to say thank you. It's one of those
Yes.
things that it never leaves. It never leaves your heart.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of us probably have a story like that. We all have a Greg, that stepped up for us when we
And
needed
it needs to
somebody.
be
So
shared more often, don't you think, Jared? Like, it
100%.
really, instead of just talking about how bad you have it and how somebody treats
Yes.
you bad, let's talk about the times when somebody championed you, or
Yes,
you were
absolutely.
championed, or you championed somebody else. Let's
Yes.
focus on that.
There's too much negativity. Let's just
There,
let's just be
there
positive. I
are
agree
there.
with you.
I agree.
I agree with you so much. So
Yeah,
the last question that I want to ask you, and I'm very excited to hear your answer because I think it'll be very thoughtful.
yeah.
What is the term at this stage in your life? You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a former Nitro girl. What does the term success mean to you at this stage of your life?
Success really is where the success is not defined. Focus on success defined. Okay, I got it. It's in my head.
I hear you.
Success is when you stop comparing yourself to what you consider other people's success.
Yes.
Success is when you have accountability and you have grit to change the things that you can change and accept things you can't know. Because I saw like a really neat little plaque at Cracker Barrel, and it said, nothing changes if nothing changes, right?
Okay. Cracker
Nothing
Barrel with the words
changes,
of wisdom. I like that.
Cracker Barrel, nothing changes if nothing changes. So success is being accountable for your own action and your own result. Like, don't compare yourself to others. And I think that's what social media does. It's, and I have to tell you too, it's like, first of all, I'm very, very thankful that somehow the lighting is great and it's favoring my aging self. But there's times, Jared, where I think I'm going to post something and I look and I zoom in and I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I see some of my friends post and it's so filtered. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I am not going to do that. But at the same time, I can't do this either. I can't. But anyway, so it's just, yeah. But again, I'm sorry. I tend to go into rabbit holes.
Oh
I
no, I
think
love it.
I
Love
spread
it.
myself really, I have a lot of rabbit holes right now that I've been digging myself in and out of. But again, like accountability, and if you can be happy with yourself about choices, and you only really compete with yourself. Don't
Absolutely.
It's not even compete. It's just, are you, and it's not even about being happy. It's being content. You know, happiness is just, it's an emotion. It's not a
Right.
state.
Fleeting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fleeting. So if you can just be content with yourself, and give grace to yourself. There's
I
always
love that.
tomorrow, right? The sun comes
Right.
up. And again, make sure that you are never too proud to apologize, you
Absolutely. I
know?
love that. Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
I knew you wouldn't let me down. I knew you would have something fantastic, and you didn't disappoint.
I think I threw the whole like spaghetti at the wall. I don't know.
That's all right. It's
I don't know.
sticking. It's
I
sticking.
don't know what stuck or what didn't, but yeah. Yeah,
No,
I know
that
you
was
asked
very
for one. Yeah.
that's all right. That's very beautifully put. And I know that somebody watching is going to get something, something different. Everybody that watches this is going to get something different out of that. And that's exactly what I want. I want people to get to know you as a person, not just as the Nitro girl. So I think that answer was so wonderfully put. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Yeah, and find a community.
Yes.
Don't do life alone. Find a
Yes.
community and be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you need a community, the Fansview podcast, we're building one over here, so come join
Yes,
ours.
come. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Come like us on Facebook, on Instagram, all the fun stuff. I'll leave the link tree in the comments. I'm not going to push anything right now. Where can people get a hold of you though if they'd like to reach out to their favorite Nitro girl?
I just have, like, right now, like, I actually have, if you did any kind of research, I try to get a product launched I have a utility patent on it. I did crowdfunding, but I wasn't able to fulfill it because all the domestic manufacturer price went up when supply chain got shut down, and a lot of companies that did international manufacturing turned to domestic.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, I am working on it again, and I've kind of changed a little bit of a strategy, but that's to come. But probably the main thing is just follow me on Instagram, which is just Chae. I think it's Chae _ Marsh. If you look up Chae Marsh, you'll find me.
Well,
And
you
then
guys
from
got to
there, yeah.
absolutely. You guys got to make sure to go follow Chae. Keep an eye on her. She is an entrepreneur. She's not just a former Nitro Girl. She's making moves over here. So keep your eyes on her, and let's show her some love and support, and try to champion and be her Greg in 2024 going into
Yes, be my
2025.
Greg.
Thank you so much, Chae,
Oh,
for
I
your
like
time.
that. Be my Greg.
And
Yeah.
there you see, take
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
You
I'll
gave
take
me
it.
so much. That's what I can give you back.
Thanks,
Be
Jared.
your Greg. But
Yeah.
I thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're incredibly busy. And this has just been wonderful. I couldn't have asked for a better interview.
Thank you. This was very, very enjoyable. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And guys, I can't put her over enough. Go follow her on Instagram again. Go support her business ventures and just show her some love. And until next time, this has been Jarrett from the Fans View Podcast. Make sure to call your mom, guys.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.